Kyle here from All Media Reviews, vinyl collection, vinyl collection A to Z, number, I'm scoring at home, 29, let's see, 30, 31, this would be 32 I think. Letter U, I just did the letter T was I think 31, I don't know, I hate trying to figure this out because I always figure it out after the fact. So I know it's not a huge stack. It's only like 10 records here. So the first one is this band. I don't remember how I found out about them. Probably through a blog or through a recommendation, or this goes back to almost the MySpace period. This album came out in 2012 when I first heard about this band. They're called Umbrella Tree. I might have found one of their CDs at Cheapo. Used to buy these ones that have recommended if you like, and they're like $3 or $5. I'm like, I'll take a chance on it and sample it or whatever. So Umbrella Tree. They're from Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know if they know the guys in, like, Timbre. Actually, that was part of it. Timbre played on one of their records, I think. So it's interesting. But they were, yeah, chamber, art rock, you know. They weren't, like, highly technical musicians, but they were good songwriters. I don't know who I'd even compare them to exactly. But this is their final record. I know they did, like, a campaign for it, and I got mentioned in one of their videos. To the Memory of a Once Great Man. I think I bought at least one of their previous albums on CD. I mean, I don't know, who do you compare them to? There's a bunch of small bands I could compare them to, but people don't know. Phenomena maybe a little bit, or, you know, they had a Radiohead influence, of course, like a lot of bands from this period of time, and, you know, or Mute Math, stuff like that. So anyway, but yeah, I haven't listened to this in a long time, but I remember liking it. I wasn't, like, obsessed with it, but I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. I want to support this band, and they're not around anymore. And they had Timbre, the, you know, phenomenal, you know, savant harpist who's done a lot of great work herself, of course, and she played with Anathello. I thought she might have played with Sufjan Stevens at one point, but I don't know. Anyway, this is Umbrella Tree from 2012. The Memory of a Once Great Man. I think that if you look them up on YouTube, you find like they mention all the people that contributed to the campaign, and my name's in there. I think they might have mentioned my blog. I can't remember. So I only have one record, unfortunately, at this point from this band. I probably at some point want to get more of their records. They're kind of the Brett. I always consider they're the Brett Saberhagen of rock or prog. You know, this is Humphreys McGee with their 2009 album Mantis, which is their best record to me. You know, clearly. I love a couple of the other records, especially a couple of the others, but this is the #1 record for me. This came out of nowhere, sort of like, I had like the previous record I only thought was okay, but then the one before that, the first one I'd heard, Anchor Drops, I loved, but this was better than Anchor Drops. One of the people online was comparing them to Spock's Beard. I think people that like Spock's Beard that have never heard Humphreys McGee, haven't heard Mantis. I know my friend, you know, Frantic Dav, you know, he totally will attest and echo this statement that Humphreys McGee, at their best, are totally up there with Spock's Beard. If you like Spock's Beard, have not heard Humphreys McGee. Now, not exactly. I mean, they're considered a jam band. They're associated with Fish and Government Mule and, you know, Mo, all these other jam bands per se, but, this album was their studio, so they say they're better live, which I saw them the first time I liked them live. The second time they were okay. They did covers. They did these mashups. By the third time I saw them live, I was really getting bored by them, unfortunately. I saw them maybe one other time, and I've pretty much finished. But I still listen to their studio records. I do listen to some of the mashups that they do put online sometimes, but from Chicago. But their record from last year, actually, surprisingly, was really good. But Mantis is where it's at if you're going for prime Humphreys McGee. But they have other good records. But the title track is awesome. Cemetery Walk 1 and 2, catchy as hell. Red Tape. I mean, this album is just filled with energy and flow. The vocal lines, it's just, oh man. Like I said, I mean, I hate to make a comparison to Spock's Beard. It's almost in some ways like the best album Spock's Beard never made in some ways. I don't know, it's not maybe the best comparison because they have other elements in their music, but they don't sound like Fish or the Grateful Dead really on this. Not the other records at times they do, although the other records have a ton of good songs that aren't even like very jam band cliche either. Cliche-ish. So alright, I have only one record from this artist, I believe, as well. This is Todd Rundgren's Utopia. I just put it under Utopia. It could have gone under R, but This is the debut album, I believe. Came out in 72, 74. Of course, this has Icon, the All Side 2, which is a prog epic, which, you know, I've listened to maybe 15 times. I haven't listened to it a ton, but when I listen to it, I'm like marveled by how great it is. It's right up there with Gates of Delirium and Supper's Ready as a prog epic masterpiece. I think it needs to be mentioned more. But this whole record, I guess, the side A, those three pieces or whatever, Utopia Theme, Freak Parade, and Freedom Fighters. Yeah, I mean, of course, Rundgren would go on to do pop stuff, and so, you know, relationship. He worked with XTC, he works with local band, but not the best relationship. 12 Rods? Is it 12 Rods? I think it was 12 Rods. I forget. Anyway, he's a producer and a musician. He worked with Colin Oates, maybe. He came up around the same time in, like, Philadelphia, but, you know, I was like, let's look at his musicians. I mean, he's kind of eccentric, but, you know, he's a genius at the same time. The cat's doing the insect hunting again? I don't know. Well, now you're looking at the camera, Kaji. You want to eat my CDs. Alright. So moving on. I thought I had both records, but I only have the first. I don't have Danger Money. I have Danger Money on CD, I believe, but I only have one UK, the debut album from the UK. You know, the super group per se. It's like, you know, we don't want you scratching up my box. I mean, the box is just for safety. Why are you scratching my box, Kaja? And now he licks my finger. Yeah, I mean, this came out, what, 70... We were talking about this on the prog stream yesterday. I like this album. I like the other album. I didn't really get to chime in for that particular point, but I kind of feel like Danger Money's a slightly better record. This is maybe a promo, but it's just splitting hairs. I feel like this band and album on paper was like could have been better than it was. But that being said, I mean, it sounds to me very much like Crimson. Like, it's just basically, even though you don't have Robert Fripp, which is like Sacrilege, it sounds like. It's like talking about Yes, like the drama album doesn't have John Anderson, but it's still Yes. It reminds me of like some of the Red Era Crimson. I mean, because of course John Wetton on vocals. In the Dead of Night, sort of the hit, although it's really a suite. I didn't realize that. Is that? Maybe not. Yeah, it is. It's like an actual suite. You know, I can't remember which is the one what Kevin covered on that recent release on the Kevin Gilbert estate, but yeah, it's a pretty short record. 30 Years is an 8-minute track. I'm not sure if that's considered a suite or if those are 3 track. I can't remember. I mean, In the Dead of Night I know of. They also, of course, have the live album, which I might have picked up on CD. I used to see it frequently, but of course, on the second album, Bill Bruford leaves, and you have Terry Bozzio, and I don't believe Alan Holdsworth is on it, which I don't mind Alan Holdsworth. Rest in peace. I don't revere him like some people. I look at Al Di Meola or Pat Metheny as more my speed, but people love him. I know he was with Soft Machine at one point, but yeah, Alaska, Time to Kill, you know. Anyway, it came out in like 78. I think the late 70s were very spotty. I don't know. I kind of have this theory that the stuff from that period of time, a lot of the music that I've never heard, I still have yet to hear, I may discover. I can't even see the year on this, but it was late 70s, you know, and early 80s when those 2 UK albums came out and the live albums. So here's my U2 collection on vinyl. It's not that big, but it's a little bigger than... Well, I mean, I'm a U2 fan. I really became a U2 fan after being sort of convinced when Dream Theater doing all these U2 covers and really like loving them, and then realizing a lot of their music were drawing a lot of influence from U2. And I never hated U2, but I always felt like they were this college band that all the the cool kids like. But Kaji, see what I'm doing? I got this box of CDs, and he just doesn't want to stop. He needs to get his claws trimmed, of course, but... No, Kitty. No. Go after the bugs. You're going to tear my box apart. I mean, it's just for storage, temporarily. So, I have 2 of their 80s albums. I have The Joshua Tree and The Unforgettable Fire, which, push comes to shove, if I was picking favorite U2 albums, those would be the two that I would go with. I don't like the fact that I have these in here. But I also really love Achtung Baby. I've seen Achtung Baby on vinyl. I saw it was like a couple of years ago, and it was the price was like, I think it was like 70 or 80 bucks. I don't know if they repressed it, but at some point I'd like to get Achtung Baby. Some of the early stuff, maybe, but again, U2 are like the Beatles in some way. Their stuff is rarely, if ever, cheap. So I do have these two singles, too, these two 12-inch singles. I still haven't found what I'm looking for, which has Spanish Eyes and Deep in the Heart as on the B-side. From the Joshua Tree, of course. It's a decent song. There's other songs from the Joshua Tree I like more, and then this is The Unforgettable Fire, it's like an EP or sampler, which has a sort of Homecoming, which I love that track. And the title track, it's just really an EP, The Three Sunrises and Love Comes Tumbling. Yeah, I mean, the 80s U2, especially that period in the mid to late 80s, I thought, man, I just fell in love with them. And then I actually really do like All That You Can't Leave Behind and Zooropa. I like some of the records that came after that, but, Achtung Baby would be my number one the one album I'm seeking out the most. But I mean, among these two records that I consider sort of their top records, sort of Homecoming I just mentioned, and the title track, The Unforgettable Fire, and Bad. Those are the three. They even have, I don't know why specifically, they have a sort of Homecoming lyrics on the back here, which is just weird. This is, of course, Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois produced it. I don't know why, but anyway, it's the best song on the record. So as Pride, of course, that was the one song about Martin Luther King. That was everywhere for a while when I was in grade school. I remember, in high school, they played it frequently at games and on the news and the commercials even. I still don't mind it. I'm not burnt out on it, but it did get kind of overplayed. And the Joshua Tree, it was the one that followed. The Unforgettable Fire was 84, but Joshua Tree has Red Hill Mining Town, which Dream Theater did a great version of that, but I think the U2 version is still better. What is it? One Tree Hill. Of course, they named the TV series after that. Joshua Tree is an area in Southern California, I believe. Where the Streets Have No Name. I still haven't found one I'm looking for, and Without You. The first three tracks have been played to death by radio. I mean, Where the Streets Have No Name is still a track like Time from Pink Floyd. It holds up, I find. Those other two, I don't need to. I can take or leave them. I don't need to hear them again. Bullet, The Blue Sky, Running to Stand Still. In God's Country is a song that's gotten some play. It's not a flawless record, but it's pretty damn good. I guess, I go back and forth which one's my favorite. I don't know. I guess I probably would still lean toward The Unforgettable Fire, but, both records are very good, even though, it's not prog, U2, but I know they got associated with, the hipster scene and the college rock scene and the, alternative rock scene. REM is part of that whole thing. But U2, if you listen to the guitar style of The Edge, they really have more of a psychedelic, almost Pink Floyd element. It's like Pink Floyd for the 80s in some ways. And then the influence they've had on so many artists that I like, including Dream Theater, Dredge, and who was it? That band, Dolly's Dilemma. I know we're big U2 fans. The band, that prog band, but just because they're popular and they preachy and the political stuff that Bono's done, and they're a stadium rock band, which I've never seen them live, doesn't mean their music's bad. Their music's still good. It's good pop. It's good pop rock as opposed to something that's not good pop rock that people still worship. So, all right. So moving on to finish up the U's, I've got two releases from this group, which is a band admittedly I'm very new to, and I've just scratched the surface in trying to get into them. Kind of come from a similar era as U2 or XTC, which XTC I'll be talking about soon. It's Ultravox. This is the Steven Wilson mix or remix from Record Store Day in 2020. Vienna. I don't know. I think this might have been their debut album. The title track is fantastic. I totally owe Jake Root and the Transmission streams on the Manatees. I have the Fair to Midland name, Dance of the Manatee. On Saturday. It used to be Saturday and Wednesdays, and now it just depends. Sometimes it's Fridays, sometimes it's Sundays. But on Twitch, he does his DJ set, which he doesn't play a lot of prog, doesn't play a lot of metal, and doesn't even play that much classic rock, but occasionally he'll play stuff, and he'll play stuff that I don't know, like Ultravox, which the name I always knew, but I never heard their music. So, and this totally won me over. Then I checked out the record, but I'm very new to this record. I've probably only listened to it maybe 8 times. But I don't know what my kitty's now getting into, but he was having a health scare yesterday, so it's good that he's doing up to his mischief. But so the only thing I have here from them, I found that, I think at that same garage sale, Passing Strangers from Ultravox, a UK import. I think it's just a single. Yeah, and this was from the same period. I think the song I determined was from Vienna. But, again, that's how well, or lack thereof, I know. Face to Face, recorded live in King's Lead Hat. You know, I don't know if either of these are on here, looking at the track list. No, so maybe, I mean, I don't know if this was, like, stuff from a previous record or just unreleased stuff, but it's a 12-inch, like, sort of single or EP of some kind that's from the UK, and it was only $1. I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer. So the last I have is a pretty unknown release. I happen to be a big fan of another local musician named Greg Harrigas. And he had a band. Well, I mean, he's got his own solo stuff, which is like very original. It's like ethno-progressive folk stuff. He's combining folk rock and surf rock and, you know, Eastern music and East Indian music, Hindustani, that kind of stuff, with his influence from like Rush and that kind of stuff. But before that, he was with John Wright in a band in the 80s called Product. John Wright of Lato and Wright and the Galactic Cowboys. Again, these are names of Minnesota musicians, of course, but they're progressive musicians. Well, they had a band, John Wright and him, called Us, which this is their only album, I believe. They came out on vinyl. Maybe their only album. They came out in '88, August of '88. So, I mean, he was pretty young here. It actually says 89 Magnetic Productions. I would be impressed if I could even find this on Discogs, but I know that you have the ability to add that kind of stuff. John DeSalvo played the drums, but again, you know, John Wright has gone on to release a ton of music I love, and Greg Harrigas as well. So, you know, honestly, I've only heard some like burn tracks off MP3s of some of the stuff, the Product stuff, and this, but, you know, the point that I hook up my turntable, of course, you know, I should do it in here where when I move I can play music without disturbing my neighbors. This would be one definitely to seek out. Unless it might be online somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised, actually. So that's it for the Again, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and we'll see you next time.